Okay, here we go. We are here with Daniel Griffin, old friend of mine, old acquaintance, founder, head of Griffin's horse archery based in South Africa. Certainly one of the pioneers, I would say, of horseback archery in South Africa. And we're very happy to be in contact again after some time apart. How are you, Daniel?
Very well, thanks. Thank you, Jihad, for having me on your talk conversation. It's great. Yeah,
No
very
problem.
honored to be here, and I'm very well. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
No problem. Right, I'm going to first start off by, I had to dig up some pictures, and so these were not necessarily
Great.
of us. Actually, I couldn't find ones of us, but these were the course back in, where is it now? 2011, Lenasia. And this is, I think, where we first met. So Mohammed Rida, Neil Payne, myself,
Yeah.
we were out there. So I'm sure this might bring back some memories of the course that we did. So we had to improvise.
Wonderful memories. April 2011.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we had to kind of improvise. We didn't have too much of our own equipment, but I think we did what we could with what we had. So you know, we had, I think it was a good venue. The lady had some good horses there that we could use, and we kind of set up different drills and exercises, you know, for people to use, you know, barrels and little shooting lanes and things like that, you know. So I thought it was nice to actually bring that up and reminisce a little bit. For some reason, I can't find any pictures of us, but it was still good memories. How is the who was the bowyer that came on that course? I forgot his name.
Johnny Snyman.
That's the guy. Yes. Are you still in touch with him, or what's his situation?
Very much so. Yeah, he's still making bows, and I actually had a conversation with him recently about making some horse bows again, because he was making horse bows and then he kind of went away from it and focused more on the hunting industry with his recurves hunting bows. But in the conversation with him recently, it looks like he's quite keen to make a horse bow again, which is great. So I shot his bows from before that training camp. Actually, I shot his bows for many years, all over the world in horseback archery. And if it wasn't for Johnny Snyman, he was the one that introduced me to your course in 2011. So
that's right. Yeah, I remember. I think myself or Neil was in touch with him. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and he was involved. I think he was supplying some of the equipment, some of the bows, and through Aisha, and and he couldn't, he's always had the dream of getting horseback archery growing in South Africa right from the start. And interestingly, when I bought my first bow from him in it was early 2010, and I ordered a horse bow from him, and not knowing that horseback archery was actually an international sport.
Right.
But I was on the internet, and I'd been doing traditional archery for so many years, longbow, traditional archery, and this horse bow was available. Right. And after meeting him and getting the horse bow, ordering the horse bow and getting the specially made horse bow, which was 65 pounds. Can you believe it?
Wow, crazy. Wow.
And he still didn't tell me, or I didn't ask, or there was no connection that told him that I was getting the horse bow for horseback archery, but I had no idea it was an international sport. And And when you guys came to South Africa, he sent me a message this evening and said the British Horseback Archery Association are coming to South Africa. I was like, just that one sentence was like boom for me, you know. Like, wow, you mean this is actually an international sport? And there I was, like, sitting on my horse and bareback and shooting a stationary target.
Right.
No idea what I was doing.
Amazing.
And so yeah, Johnny Slayman was my introduction to you guys.
Awesome.
And,
Awesome. I remember he was making he was making bows for the film industry and stuff like that, right? Is he still involved in that?
Yes.
Or
He's still involved in that. I don't know about recently, but I did a couple of films. I was involved in a couple of films through him. I taught some Comanche warriors, and
great.
So I did a couple of films through him with Horseback Archery, and also with a few of my horses involved in some of the films as well.
Awesome.
But yeah, he's definitely one of the guys that does support in quite a few big films.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff. Okay. So Daniel, for anyone who maybe not have heard of you before or doesn't know that you guys are operating in South Africa, just tell us a little bit about where you're based, your current, operation, the facility you have, the horses you have. I know you have definitely, and I've heard it from others as well. And, it's probably one of the best horse tracks facilities worldwide, for sure. Certainly in the Southern Hemisphere, you've put an amazing amount of work into that. And I know it's a thankless job, but you've done a really commendable, awesome job down there. So I really want to let as many people know about what you're doing and where you are and stuff like that. So just tell us a little bit about your facility there.
So shortly after the training camp, actually, that we had in 2011, I started to build Griffin's horse archery, which was originally called Griffin's mounted archery. Mm-hmm. And I already started to build the facility. I think it was 2012 that I already got the first earth moving machine in to build the first track. And it's developed since then. I now have four horseback archery tracks.
Yeah.
We have two 99-meter tracks, Kassai tracks for Kassai World Cup competitions.
Excellent.
I have 150-meter, which is actually 180-meter Korean, which is nearing its final stage of development, plus a 330-meter hunt track. We have 10 horses now. I've just bought a new horse a couple of months ago.
Great.
So I now have 10 horses. Most of them are very highly trained for horseback archery.
Yeah.
And we have accommodation. So Griffin's horse archery essentially is a few different parts. The main part, the foundation of Griffin's horse archery is really the facility, and the horses, and then we have the other aspect, which is the equipment, which are the saddles that I make, and support, and then the third part is the team, Griffin's horse archers, which are the horseback archers that are my students and that train with me here, of which there are 12.
Excellent.
12 or so members. So we train once a month for 3 days, over Friday afternoon, Saturday and Sunday. And then the facility is open. So I'm basically training for many years now. I'm training daily, or at least 5 days a week.
Excellent.
Summer I train in the morning from 6:30 until 10, and in the winter from 2 p.m. until 5. So It's a 3.5 to 4 hour training session, and we basically are offering. I've got accommodation and have, my dream around horseback archery has always been facilitated towards training rather than competition.
Right.
So the whole aim of Griffin's horse archery is the facility, and creating the space or the training center where people from all over the world can come and train.
Yeah.
And that's from beginners to advanced horseback archers. So
excellent.
I welcome anybody, although next year probably going to 4 10-day international training camps, which are quite grueling. We train for about 6 hours a day,
right,
in the morning and the afternoon.
Yeah.
Day after day. This includes accommodation and food and everything. I have a cook that comes and cooks.
Excellent.
And basically we just focus on training. And I'm not the teacher, the big teacher or anything, but we all train and we share knowledge together and help each other grow and develop in this horseback archery, which is really so new internationally. And so I think a lot of us are really just sharing the knowledge that we have, what we've learned throughout the years that we've been doing it. And so the international training camps are really just a couple of times a year at the moment, maybe 4 times next year.
Yeah.
But then all year round, I have these a short-term and a long-term live-in training program. So there's a daily rate which is self-catering. So we have this very nice accommodation, and horseback archers come and stay for a week or 2 or even up to 3 months, as I've had a couple of times with Michael Pearson coming for very long periods of time, 2 to 3 months. And I've also had horseback archers from all over the world coming for just a week or even just a weekend. So I really do advise that. For me, it's more you need to, especially when you're coming after a 12-hour flight to the very southern tip of Africa, which is where we are. We're about 2 hours drive, for 2.5 hours drive from Cape Town International Airport. Very south, very far south, about as far south as you can go in India, really.
Pretty much, Excellent.
So,
no, that's good. I mean, so I just pulled up the Instagram page here. We were looking at some of the images, and I mean, from the time that I came, I think I don't know if it was 2011 or it might have been a year or so after. I remember that you did have obviously the basic track there with like a slight of a hill, like a backstop, and then you had the round kind of small training pen which you could just do circles in and shoot towards like a target.
That's right.
But I mean, now, I mean, I'm really blown away. I have to commend you on the effort that you've put in. You've clearly thought about what a world-class training facility needs to have, and you have supplied that here. I mean, you have this excellent track for Hungarian style. You've got a long track for Korean style. You've got this kind of big field area where you've basically dug out and you've had targets at the end, which is excellent for long distance shooting. You've explained you've got facility for accommodation for students,
very important,
and things like that. So I mean, this is no doubt, and I mean, you've got excellent range of horses, which I'm sure that they're all trained to a very good degree. And the key thing, Daniel, is that you have made that sacrifice, and you're not just talking the talk, you're actually doing it yourself. You're living on the land there. You're training every day. You're being very humble to say you're not the teacher, but I think the level of experience that you have and that you are gaining every day and the exposure that you have to riding, you know, at least 5 days a week supersedes many other people in the horseback archery world, because they just don't have that facility. So, you know, for everyone listening here, I would highly recommend, you know, people get in touch with Daniel and try and make a visit out there for sure.
Thank you, Jihad. That's very, very kind of you to say those kind words. Just on that note of you know, experience, I have Kenny, who is my right hand man in Griffin's Horse Archery. Kenny and Vusi. Kenny has. I've done about 11,000 gallops on that track.
Wow.
Since the last few years, as on the rotating target, not in total.
Yeah.
But since I installed the rotating target, then I started to record points on a daily basis. 10,000 gallops, 11,000. It's now about 11,000 gallops that Kenny has been doing the scoring and been facilitating my training. So his level of experience in watching horseback archery. So Kenny has kind of become a trainer and kind of become my trainer in many ways as well. So Griffin's Horse Archery is a team. We've got Vusi, who's very much involved in saddle making now. Kenny, who is the groom. He's the horseman. He's catching the horses and facilitating the training. And Sandra Fulyun, who is working for me as a PA. She's also doing scorekeeping and things like that. So we have this very strong team actually, and as it's not just me. I couldn't have built that track without help, and also over and beyond that, there's the club, the Griffin Horse Archery Club, who, you know, when we all do our group trainings, we're working on the horses and training the horses. And so, you know, it's always been, for me, horseback archery is a way of life. It's, and that's what I love about it. It's living in nature with horses. And
this is Kenny here in the video.
It's a lifestyle, which could be, yes, that's Kenny.
Excellent.
That's
Kenny. Excellent.
So Kenny's a horseback archer himself now. In the last year, he started to put more energy. He's now got a very nice bow, and he's putting more energy into his own personal trainings.
Excellent. You've even got like a automated scoreboard at the end as well, or a timer or something.
Yes, it's a radio signal for the timer, which is visible from up to 100 meters for spectators. And very importantly for left-hand archers who can see the timer from the other end of the track. It's also a remote-controlled scoreboard. So as soon as you shoot a certain amount of points, and this applies to both the Kassai style and the Korean style. For example, you do a Korean 1, 2, 3, and you shoot, let's say you do a Korean multiple 3 shot on the 90 meter, and you shoot a 4, and a 5, for example. And so immediately 13 points can be put up onto the board. So you know. You don't have to look back and see the flags or anything like that.
No, that's a fantastic facility.
Kind of developed. The most recent development is from Terry Decamp in France, who's been a wonderful mentor to me as well over the years. And Terry has developed this automatic rotating target. And just recently, I did a huge development in Griffin's Horse Archery where we installed this automatic rotating target with heightened barrier banks. It's got 6 sensors that are all running under the ground. So it was quite a big endeavor.
Quite a job, yeah.
But it's high tech. It's high tech to your laptop. And so when this whole facility moves to an indoor track, which is in the development stage at the moment, there's no need for a radio screen. It's all through the computer, to smart TV screens, and you can actually see rider after rider, who shot what your last points were, etc., etc. You're not just getting your final points.
I mean, I doubt there's any other track like that worldwide, is there, that has that kind of capability? I know that the Kassai horse track does have a moving target, but your one is kind of a little bit more high tech than that one, isn't it?
Yes. With this automatic or robotic target, yes, it's the first in the world other than Terry de Kamp's original one.
Right.
And I mean, I really like, what's wonderful about this rotating target is well, not just the rotating target, but the automatic target is that you can train alone. So we don't always have the privilege of being able to train in a group. And it's got a remote control. So you press the button and the target goes to face the start position. You gallop down the track, the target's facing you the whole way, according to the speed of the horse.
Amazing.
And you shoot, and you can actually do a 9 gallop set with only getting off your horse 3 times to collect your arrows.
Amazing.
So, or a 12 gallop set with your warm-ups.
Yeah.
So that's kind of more high-tech sort of Hungarian or Kassai style training,
right?
Or competition.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of that is it's centralized. So it's one target, it's facing you, you're only collecting your arrows from one point, you're not walking the whole duration of the track on the way back to collect your arrows from multiple targets, etc., etc. So but it's very much geared towards the Kassai style in the rotating target.
Sure.
The career targets currently on my 99-meter track, I have them as mobile units, so they're on wheels, we bring them out.
Excellent.
We do, and last year, actually, this year and last year, with the Mounted Art Association of South Africa, we've done quite interesting qualifier competitions where we've had to do 6 runs on a Hungarian track, and 6 runs on a Korean track through each other. And as you would know, I mean, it's your Hungarian is a slow kind of 5 meters per second,
right? And
your Korean 10 meters per second.
Yeah.
And all having to be done on the same horse. And, so it demanded quite a lot from all my horses, but it was well to see that all my students and my horses actually underwent the challenge and were successfully doing 5 meters per second and then close to 10 meters per second on the Korean as well, straight after.
Excellent.
So we've had a whole year, and actually just before lockdown, of this kind of Hungarian Korean as part of our national qualifiers.
Yeah.
And which has been I think my students have enjoyed it. They've enjoyed, and it kind of inspired me as well to rebuild my Korean track. So I've just done a little bit more work on it recently, and I haven't put any photos of that up yet because it's not finished really. But that's going to be kind of a multi-discipline track. It's going to have the Kazakh style, the Turkish style, the Korean style. So I'm kind of going to probably call it a multi-discipline track, because it'll have not multi-discipline but multi-track kind of various international styles.
Right.
Whereas the other track, the current main track that I have is more of a training track, with the 10 targets. So you can shoot forward, side, back. You can decide any distance you want to shoot at, and I'm going to keep it at that. And then ultimately, the Kassai track will, with the one rotating target, will have its own sort of pride in place eventually. Won't have various targets, it'll just have the one target. So kind of looking at all the different aspects of horseback archery. And so within Griffin's horse archery, you can really decide what you want to do. And because we're doing grading on a daily basis, not grading, but we do scorekeeping every single day, every single gallop that this is a very important aspect of Griffin's horse archery, is that actually every single arrow that we shoot is recorded on foot, really? On a trot, on or on a gallop. Yes. So it's very nice for international horseback archers who come along to sort of see the progression of how you're progressing, and also that if you, for example, shoot a great score on a Korean or a Kassai rotating target track or so forth, those results can be used to submit for grading within the EHA system. So we've done a hell of a lot of grading here, where lots of international horseback archers have actually used those scores to submit for EHA grades.
Awesome. That's excellent.
And which is another added advantage of just doing regular scorekeeping over and above that you can really see your development. And it's amazing, Jihad. I mean, we've got guys that come here and after a few weeks or even 10 days or a few weeks or a month, the development is incredible. And that's why I say that, yes, I have a lot of experience in regular training and in horsemanship and so forth, but just training and just riding a good horse, it's a very important aspect. Riding a good horse on a good, safe track. You just learn, and if you just keep doing that after like daily, you just start to see the development in individuals.
Now you've had I know you've had Kassai actually come to the track and he's kind of given it his thumbs up and approved it. Tell me about that trip, and also after that, I'm just showing some videos of some of the other training you're doing that supports the horseback archery training, which I think is also excellent. I think a lot of people think of horse archery, you just jump on the horse and you start shooting, but there's a lot of external training, physical training that goes into that. So maybe you can comment about that afterwards as well. But tell us about Kassai and his visit and what happened there.
Yeah, Kassai came to South Africa to approve my track in 2016, January 2016. So I did the initial development of this track in 2014. I had another track which wasn't built in a very good area and it got very waterlogged. So I rebuilt the track that I built in 2012, rebuilt in 2014, higher up on the bank, and that's the current track. And there I built the rotating targets. By 2015, I had the rotating target up and running. And by 2016, Kassai came to South Africa to see that the target had been built according to his international standards.
Did you invite him specifically for that, or he was coming for something else?
No, I invited him specifically for that. So, with the approval of my track being to the specifications, and also upon successfully judging a competition, I received my international judge's license from him.
Excellent.
So within the Kassai system there, which is the original Kassai system, there are now 25 or 26 international judges,
Mm-hmm.
all with tracks exactly like mine.
Awesome.
Which is quite a strong system, in the sense that every track has been personally approved by Mr. Kassai,
Mm-hmm.
and all the tracks, for absolute certainty, all the tracks are absolutely the same.
Yeah. So the standard is maintained,
and all
right?
all the tracks, the standard is very high, and also most of the tracks are built by landowners, and the judges are landowners themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very strong, and and the foundation is very strong going forward in that they're not just going to disappear,
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the rules aren't going to change, which is a very important aspect for me as well. When you spend as many years as I have training on one type of track, you don't really want rules to change. So
of course.
I know, for example, absolute certainty that the target will look the same and the rules will be the same in years to come. And as a professional sport going forward, I think that's a very important foundation. And so that's why Kassai came to just see with his own eyes that everything is done correctly, that I judged the competition correctly, and then he gave me lessons. I was one of the first internationals outside of the Kassai school. Which was a new kind of development for Mr. Kassai, because until that point it was only judges kind of within the school.
Right.
And then there was Terry de Camp, Robin de Camp in France, and then Christoph Neuberger in Germany, Tom Kalner in the USA, and Robert Barsos in Canada, Katie Stearns in the United States. And so it started to grow, this international judge community, which was really the first international judging system, kind of approved system outside of, within the Kassai system, but outside of the actual Kassai school. So,
I think that's quite a milestone, for them to recognize someone.
The beauty of it is
outside of their school is very important.
Yes, and also that our results can now be compared with all best horseback archers within the Kassai system, who only compete kind of within this World Cup system. So, there's always a dream of mine to be able to compete with these guys, because they are so good. I mean, they're shooting, 270 points. It's unbelievably good. I always wanted to kind of compete with them and see how I would sort of level up against them in competition. And that's what the Kassai World Cup brings to you, is to be able to map with these guys. So I think getting to the training aspect, a lot of the training is obviously geared towards there's a few main parts to the training. There's your physical training, your art training, your horse training, and then there's horseback archery. So in one given training session, which goes on for a few hours, your actual horseback archery, where you are at a full gallop or a canter, galloping on the horse and shooting the target, that's only 45 minutes, where the whole training session will be 3.5 to 4 hours.
Yeah, so it's a very comprehensive training session.
And it's very important, because we'll start with a half an hour physical warm up, and which is quite comprehensive, and that's also very important. Otherwise, you start to develop, physical problems, which I've had and been through, and been through personal trainers and physios that have helped me
Sure.
develop this program. And so we start with this warm-up program, which then goes to, then we start to warm up archery, where we'll do ground archery training from 10 meters to 50-meter distances.
Right.
And it's quite an interesting system which I've developed, in that it's a test. So I always say to my students that they can practice archery at home. They can do the speed shooting at home. They can do all sorts of different exercises which you can do with traditional archery, right? But what they can't do at home is 50-meter shots.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody can do that at home unless you've got a really big property.
Sure.
So that's one of the things that I encourage as part of our daily training. It's one of the things that kind of separates the boys from men, if I could use that analogy,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of a good archer, is how accurate you are from kind of 50, 60, 70 meters.
Right.
And so I encourage this long distance archery, because the first arrows which we shoot on the Kassai track, it's a 99-meter track, so your first arrow is approximately 50 meters, but because of the angle, we are shooting also before the pole, about 5 meters before the pole, and because of the angle of the shot, it's actually more like a 60-meter shot.
Right. Tell me,
I encourage long distance archery. So what we actually do,
link to that. Sorry to interrupt you. I saw on one of the videos where you are doing your first long shot. I don't know if it's just myself or it's maybe a technique you teach. You're slightly off to one side of the horse, where you're kind of standing more in the stirrup. Is that something deliberate, or is that just your technique, or have I got that mistaken?
I think it's definitely the first shot is you kind of got to get. I try to replicate a good form from ground to horse. So whether you're on the ground or whether you're on the horse, your form should be the same. And one of the important aspects is your spine and the straightness of your spine. If your spine is crooked or bent, you cannot actually execute the shot with as much precision as you would. I don't know. There's different techniques, right? But for me, I teach a very structured technique, a very straight spine, and a very straight and full draw, where your elbows and shoulders and wrists are all in one line, and your spine is very straight. So it's kind of that sort of cross. So good alignment. So getting onto the horse, in order to maintain that alignment, you have to really get your bum out of the saddle.
Right.
And that's where I believe that the Griffin horse archery saddle is so important, because and it's based on ancient saddle designs, warrior saddle designs, mostly very early, sort of 400 AD, just very early history, both Turkish, Mongolian, Hungarian, but even some of the Japanese saddles look quite similar as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to try and pull up an image of that saddle, just so people can see what it's like. And it just, I mean, why don't we? I did want to talk about the equipment that you're making, stuff like that. I mean, have you found a saddle maker? Are you doing it yourself? And where did you get the kind of all the moving parts? How did you bring it together?
Right. So the saddle was basically inspired by traveling to many different competitions around the world. I needed to. Well, first of all, I encountered many different types of saddles, and then I had a saddle made for me out of wood, and so that my relationship started to grow with the traditional horseback archery saddle.
This is the saddle
which
you
I
mean, yeah?
initially did not like. I really didn't like. That's my saddle. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll see it's got a very high front pommel and a very high back cantle.
Yeah.
And that kind of acts like almost like a bucket kind of seat in that it is your balance to fall out. Even if the horse trips or kind of does these crazy things, it's very difficult to fall out of the saddle.
Yeah, so it's quite secure.
So basically, it's there to support you because you're standing in the saddle doing horseback archery with, it's sort of a half sit, half stand, but it's there to support you. It's not there to hold you, but to support you. So you kind of ride up against the saddle, if I could use that kind of. So in order to have a nice posture, you kind of get your bum out the saddle, but you need your thighs. You need support for your thighs, and so that's why the pommel is shaped in such a manner. So I actually built the original tree wood and wax, and I modified it out of sculpting wax and modified it and until I had it absolutely 100% correct. And this was a process that took almost a year of training and tweaking and training and tweaking the shape.
Is the shape, sorry to interrupt, is the shape based on any historical technique, shape, or is it just an ergonomic shape?
It's 4th century Hungarian, but it's traditional in if you study the shapes of all the traditional military or horseback archery saddles, and in those days all military saddles were basically horseback archery saddles. They all have that similar kind of aesthetic to them, or similar features. The aesthetics can change. You can put leather or sheepskin seat, or you can do whatever. You can make a saddle look so different having the same tree. So the tree is really the it's the kind of the foundation of the whole saddle. And I can ride in my saddle just with the tree without any. And I don't know if you have some of those pictures, but I've built an iron horse, which I have just the tree, and you sort of
explain to me when you say tree, what do you mean?
I mean the actual plastic base of the saddle itself.
Okay, got you. Right.
Yeah. So there I have on my Facebook, I have some videos of the iron horse being used, where you shoot in 20 seconds. You shoot forward, side, back, all 10 targets, and the iron horse is placed in the middle, and you shoot forward, side, back, in a timed manner. And this is done in the actual tree, in the saddle itself. But of course, there's no leather or sheepskin. It's just the actual plastic tree. So originally, I had these being made, and then I started actually making them myself. So I'm actually casting the plastic myself.
Excellent.
And until this point, I've sold dozens of saddles all over the world, and they've gone to probably about 15 different countries all over the world now.
Oh, excellent! That's very good.
Which that it's very important that to say that the saddles I'm not making them for, like, they are commercial, of course.
Yeah.
But the motive behind making the saddles was to develop the ultimate horseback archery saddle for
Yeah.
myself and my students and
Mm.
international guys that are coming here.
Sure.
So, and the spin-off is that I can sell them all over the world and slowly regain some of the revenue that I've invested in these saddles.
Yeah.
They aren't a one saddle fits all horse. They aren't. I won't ever say that they are, but they pretty much will fit most horses in my experience. You can substitute extra or less or more padding.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to design the bars of the saddle that they are sort of as close to a one size fits all as possible, because of course I'm taking the saddle with me overseas and I'm doing a big World Cup or something somewhere, and I need that saddle to fit whatever horse I'm presented with.
Right.
And but yes, you know, you might find that certain horses it's not ideal or you need a tweak. So I am working on an adjustable bar, which you can sort of loosen bolts and actually adjust the angle of the bars underneath to fit kind of any horse. And that's just more important when you're doing, let's say, hours and hours of training on one horse, on the same horse every single day.
Yeah.
With my horses, it's a very different scenario because I have 10 horses. The horse has more of a natural life than what they have a horseback archery life.
Right.
These kind of issues never become a problem. You know, so yeah.
That's good. I did what you mentioned about the horses. So
yeah.
You know, and I've asked this question, and again, there's no one best way to do these things. Everyone finds their own method, whatever works for them. For you yourself, your horses, how do you go about training your horses for horse archery? What life do they have on your land? You know, if you get a new horse in, what's your method and procedure of breaking that horse in and preparing it for horse archery?
Okay, this is a very important aspect. Thanks for asking about that. For me, it's one of the most important things. I have currently around 80 hectares of grazing, and I've removed every single internal fence on the farm. So currently, the last few months, I've been working on erecting a very good border fence on the farm. So the horses roam freely on 80 hectares of land. Now, it's a hell of a huge area.
Yeah.
It's not just 80 hectares, but it's a very long, thin earth. The horses can choose where they want to be. If they want to be under the trees, or if they want to be up on the hill, down by the lake, and that's a very important aspect. And you'll see the horses actually are trotting and galloping, and they're kind of keeping themselves fit in a natural herd environment every day. So when I get a new horse in, it's quite difficult because I can't just introduce them to the whole herd, because they can kill a new horse. They've done it before. And I've got to be quite careful. It's a herd. It's not just like having some horses in a yard. They are kind of very close to a herd.
There's a hierarchy. There's a social, system.
Absolutely.
And things, isn't there? Yeah.
There's a hierarchy. There's a social system and everything. And so when I get a new horse, I keep them around my house. So I've kind of got a field around my house where I can close one or two horses in there. And I've got an old retired mare she's actually not retired. She does horseback archery about once a week, but she's 29 years old. And so any new horse that comes kind of goes in with her.
Okay.
And sort of gets acclimatized, and then over the fence they can see trainings going on, and so slowly. And so in this last year, actually, I've bought 2 horses, and I've in this way introduced them. And to give you an idea of how long it took, I've only just 1 month ago introduced them to the herd.
Wow.
So one horse that came in March and one that came in the beginning of the year or the end of last year. So I really take my time and so that the horse gets acclimatized, and I'm very patient with horses. I really, even with the training of the horses. So we only start with shooting on ground and then trotting and shooting. And I'll trot and shoot on a horse maybe for about a year before I introduce them to galloping and shooting. Because I've got other horses that I can gallop and shoot on, which are far better for me and far highly trained for actually doing horseback archery. So the new horses, I'll do my training on them. For example, every day that I do my training, I do before doing 12 gallops, I do 12 trots. It sounds funny, but I actually trot down the track 12 times and shoot the targets, and I take points as well. And then I'll get onto another horse and I'll gallop. And that's kind of like my competition horse. And so all the new horses, they'll do that trotting exercise, which is an exercise for them and for me. So, and this is what we do with the students as well, or with my club, is that when we come, then everybody rides the horse. All the horses do trotting. All the horses then, so it's kind of the method that I use to train the horses, because you find internationally, you go to a competition somewhere around the world and you get on that horse, there's no ways you can fire an arrow off most of these horses at a trot, because they're terrified of the bow and arrow, and the moment you start to shoot, they want to bolt. And so if you can teach them to just be relaxed with the bow and arrow and shooting at a trot, and it's fantastic training for horseback archery, because your balance, especially bareback, on a trotting horse. So we actually do a lot of trotting, and not many people know that unless you kind of have done trainings here. But it's a very important aspect of the training that I do for the horses and for the horseback archers.
I love the fact that you've even dedicated a page on your website to the horses. You've kind of personalized them. You've got all the information, the color, age, the passport number. I mean, the detail is just phenomenal. I don't think I've seen this on any other horseback archery school or website. I mean, so one can see that you've put in a lot of information and a lot of attention to detail. And I think this is super important because, every horse is different. We have to treat them as individuals. So it's nice to see that we can actually, see the different horses. And I'm sure you'll add to this over time. So I assume
I really do need to.
I assume that you don't stable the horses. When I was speaking to Lucas in the States, he said, look, horses are meant to be outside. He doesn't stable his horses. They're outside even in the winter, but where he stays, there's not real winter. But do you ever have them inside during the winter in South Africa, or are they always outdoors?
Our winters are very Mediterranean. I say that and I'm all warmly dressed. we had about 9 degrees outside at the moment. But we very rarely go below zero at night in the winter, and it's only really for about 3 months of the year. So my horses all grow a very long winter coat, and for this reason, I don't brush them at all. I'm practicing natural horsemanship in that I believe that by brushing the horse too much, you brush out all the natural oils, which is kind of their natural raincoat or natural waterproofing. So, and a very important aspect of the horses being able to roam freely on a big or on a piece of land is that, for example, today it was raining. We've had a huge cold front, and when I say we've had a huge cold front, we've had 100 mils in the last 24 hours.
Wow, that's crazy.
And my horses have migrated to this huge cypress tree that is on our farm, and they're all standing underneath the cypress tree.
Right.
So, so that's their stable. Or they'll go and stand in the forest where I have the hunting track. So it's they find the place that's the warmest for them. And you might have a stable, for example, just facing directly into because you didn't design it properly. It's facing directly into the wind, and you've got a freezing kind of draft that comes through, and it might not actually be the best place for your horse. That's why I don't have any thoroughbred race horses, for example, because they're very high maintenance, and they do need to be stabled, and they do need blankets. So a lot of my horses are, quite traditional breeds, which can handle living in a more natural environment.
Excellent.
It's very much part of my philosophy in how to deal with horses. To have 10 horses which you are stabling and feeding every night and putting blankets on, it becomes very expensive and very high maintenance.
And not to mention time consuming, which, I mean, everyone's only got 24 hours in a day. To keep doing that every day, day in, day out, it's not really kind of natural, is it? So,
and there's been so many scientific studies that have been done to prove that it's actually not necessarily more beneficial for the horse.
Interesting.
Have
you found the
proof is in the proof is in the pudding. Yes.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, have you found any issues with a decline in disease or illness, the horses becoming ill and things like that? How do you find your horses nice and healthy?
But that's been the most. That's why I was saying, the proof is in the pudding, because I've never had any problems with colic, or significant weight loss, or any of those things. So
excellent.
Most problems come with horses is keeping them in a small confined areas where they cannot move, or they're getting very old foods. But it's saying all of that, my horses are privileged. Not every horse has the privilege of being able to roam on 80 hectares of grass.
Definitely. Yeah.
However, it is also high maintenance for me. The grass has to be mowed and all these types of things. So, that it's.
But the horses are mainly feeding off the land, right?
They're mainly feeding off the land. They do get fed once a day, like a protein. It's kind of like they get a 2 kilogram protein sort of mix, which I make up myself, and that's kind of for me, I kind of liken it to having a bowl of muesli in the morning. That's kind of their sort of their kind of nutrient extras.
Right.
And what's great is I use a very old-fashioned way of feeding, in that we use nose bags. So my groom will go and he'll find the horses wherever they are, on the whole farm, and they each get their own nose bag. So if there's a specific horse that I need to supplement or give something extra in the food, I can, because they get their nose bags, and they can't fight. They don't spill a grain.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, very efficient.
Yeah, very efficient. Yeah.
That's excellent. No, that's great. That's great. Now, in the UK, I guess, a lot of the stables that we have here, if you want to try and go for a riding lesson, or you do horseback archery, whatever, people are quite, I don't know if it's, I don't want to be too general, but I mean, I'm not sure if it's just a British thing or something, but they don't want to override the horse and tire it out, so, 4 or 5, gallops down the track, and they're going to say like, okay, he needs a rest now, or she needs to take it easy. But it seems from your horses, they can manage a lot more than that. What is your view on how far one can push a horse? And is it healthy to sometimes push the horse to a limit to see how far they can go?
Yeah, I mean, a horse in a natural environment will move up to 80 kilometers in a day. A lot of this will involve galloping as well as trotting, and so for me, unless the horse is apparently tired, it's not a problem. But if you work with horses, you can see the most problem is from what I have seen, it's not really physical fatigue, it's more mental fatigue. So horseback archery is quite monotonous in that the horse is galloping down one track again and again, and if you put multiple riders on the same horse, the horse starts to become sort of naughty and doesn't want to do it, and kind of so I'm quite strict in that my horses only do 12 gallops down the track.
Right.
When we have competitions, which is only say once a month, the horses will then, if depending on how many riders they'll have to share a rider, and they'll have to do a double set. So they might have to do 2 times down the track for 2 different riders, which is absolutely fine. But if you're pushing it beyond that, I would say that's too much.
Right.
But even within a competition and the horse is doing a double set of 12 gallops, it's not too much for the horse. The horse still doesn't even break a sweat, even on a 30-degree day. But I'm always very kind and very considerate in that regard. Our competitions start very early, 6:30 in the morning. Most of the time our competitions are done by 11:30 or 12. So
before the midday heat sets in,
before the midday heat that we have here in South Africa, and also the horse has a break. So you will the rider groups will have one rider group, and then another group will go. That horse will have a break, and then for 45 minutes, and then that horse will go again.
Excellent.
So that's the kind of thing. But there's no ways that we could sort of. In the beginning, I never knew what I was doing, so I would just gallop down the track until I noticed the horse was sweating, and then I'd stop. But
like most people do.
So now kind of a little bit more streamlined in that respect.
Excellent.
But the horses building up to a big competition, it's quite a big job for me and Kenny and maybe Sandra as well, to keep the horses fit.
Sure.
And not to keep them fit, but to get them sort of ready for the competition, to get them fit and ready. And the horses kind of keep themselves relatively fit just moving around the property, in that they trot and gallop. Like they'll move right to the top of the hill, they'll gallop all the way down about 1 kilometer to go and drink water.
Excellent.
And then they'll move again. So but it's more just getting them tuned up. I mean, my horses are trained to go exactly 18.5 to 19.5 seconds on a 99-meter track.
Excellent.
So if you don't ride a horse for a few weeks or a month, they forget what this feels like, the difference between 18.5 seconds or and so forth. So they have to kind of be tuned in.
They need the muscle memory and stuff.
Like we do. They kind of got to get ready for the competition. So I always put a lot of work in before we have Kassai World Cup or various national qualifier or so forth. So we put a lot of work in to make sure all the horses are right and ready. So
that's excellent.
I think to your question with regards to horses exercising and how much they exercise, that's very much a part of it. You can't just have the horses sort of roaming around and then suddenly decide to have a competition and they won't be kind of fit enough. So that's another aspect is when I say a horse is doing like 2 sets, those are like fit horses. They're strongest horses. They're not like my old mares or anything like that. So that's kind of an important aspect as well.
Excellent. Excellent. So just going back a little bit in time, I know that in the early days, you had you had that kind of the mobile pizzeria going on, and you were doing events and stuff like that. I guess now that's in the past now, and now this is your full-time work and income and everything like that, right?
Yes, I'm still doing the pizza business to some degree,
Okay.
but much less. There was, I think, one festival I did in January, so I've got some loyalties to various festivals. So I still do a couple of festivals now and again, although
Right.
I think I'm sort of almost phased that out now. Hopefully this year. The ceramic business I haven't done. I closed that down 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've put all my energy into horseback archery and developing the farm. So the pizza business is still going. It's still existing.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to really take in a big leap of faith
Yeah.
in that what if I just do horseback archery full time? Do you
Right.
think it's going to work?
Yeah.
And it's been phenomenal, Jihad. Like really in the last, it's been, and I know now, because I've had to have, register my business and have my books audited and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just Griffin's horse archery as a business is actually working as a sustainable business.
Excellent. Excellent.
Um,
I'm so happy.
but yeah, and I think that it can grow and it can work, but it does need a community to support and to go forward.
100%.
And I
Yeah.
must say, the international horseback archers that come and appreciate the facility,
Yeah.
and so forth. That's what just keeps this track
Thing alive.
going and
Yeah.
developing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
look, I for one, definitely, I'm making an intention right now. I mean, I might not have the means or whatever, but seeing what you've done with that course, the whole facility, it really makes me want to come there and come for short, long, medium period, whatever, however long
we would love
you'll
to.
bear with me.
We would love to have you. We would love to have you here.
No
Really,
problem.
we would
No
love to
problem.
have you here
But
again. Yeah.
but I mean, one can see, the horses, the heavy moving equipment, making saddles, maintaining the land. It all looks great to people like us on the outside, but I can only imagine the kind of hard work, the
Yes.
toil, the tough days that you have been through in the last 9 or 10 years to get this place to what it is. And I really hope that people will make the most benefit of it and really come out there and use it. And like you say, use it as a facility rather than a competition venue, which, I mean, you can easily use it as a competition venue, which you've demonstrated there, but having it as a go-to facility, I think on the world map is a great service that you've done to the community. So,
like I said in the beginning, my main for me, my main push is training, not competition. So it's the ultimate training track.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate. I mean, even the rotating target track, which Kassai developed, he developed it as a training track. He never developed it as a competition track.
Right.
It became a competition track. So, but the motive or the inspiration that I put to the world is come and train. Just come and train. Like there's no pressure. You train according to your own ability and even physical ability.
Excellent.
I've had elderly guys, ladies, and men, and very young, and I've had people with problems. It doesn't matter. You just take it in your stride and do what you can. And some people really struggle. They've got to take a day off. It really doesn't matter. It's just because it's something which you can do. Maybe you're a bit sore in the thighs and you don't want to ride today. Just focus on your archery. Or like even Michael Pearson, when he was here every day, he would go down and he would shoot on the iron horse every evening. And so he was supplementing his morning training, his 3.5 morning training, by his own personal session in the afternoon. Excellent. So that's the kind of thing. Anybody who comes and trains here, they'll train with me for 3.5 hours a day, and the rest of the time is their own free time.
Right.
Which they can do whatever. They can use the facility, they can go and practice 50-meter shots or do whatever they like. Great. But that training with me is kind of like the sort of standardized kind of regimented fixed
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
At one time, how many visiting, archers could you accommodate on the land and have it working?
I usually don't like to take more than 6.
Mm-hmm.
For me, 6 is the optimal amount. I have 10 horses,
Right.
but 6 is not going to put too much strain. It's more about the horses than anything else.
Yeah.
We have quite a lot of accommodation now, so that's not a problem. For example, but 6 horse archers can come and even with their partners or families or so forth. We have enough accommodation for
Excellent.
that.
That's good to know.
But horseback archers, practicing horseback archers, usually around about 6 is my limit for the international training camps.
Yeah.
And that number can grow, and I would like to see it grow as I get more horses.
Yeah.
But it's really determined by the number of horses.
That you have.
But 6, even 7. I've had even more. I've had up to 10 before, but 6 is kind of the optimal number. And it's nice when people come in a group, or even if people bring a friend. For example, I've had people coming and they'll bring a friend or bring 2 friends,
Nice.
and
Yeah.
then they can share the space together. So
That's
yeah, I
excellent.
mean, even 2 people training is already a group, So even if one person comes,
True.
it's training with me and Kenny, that's already 3 people on horses, and it's already like a group. You almost feel like you're in a competition.
Definitely, for sure.
So the feeling is really nice. It's a nice feeling to sort of share knowledge and camaraderie and that sort of chivalry and kind of just I think for me that's the life. That's horseback archery. And for me it's kind of like a daily meditation, if you could say that, or a daily ritual.
Well, I was going to ask, one of the questions that I do ask most of the interviewers is, everyone's got their own reason for doing horse archery. Some people it's just sport or hobby or interest. Other people it's more than that. It's lifestyle, it's religion, it's spirituality, things like that. For you, Daniel,
yes.
Where does it stand for you? What is it for you?
I'm not a religious man, but I am a spiritual man. And for me, horseback archery has been an evolution of spirituality. I've been through periods of time. I lived in a monastery for 4 years as a very young man, and I've developed in my knowledge of spirituality and so forth, although it's a very broad term. I don't practice any specific religion, but horseback archery in a certain sense has become my religion, if you put it like that. But I don't really like to use that word. It's more like it's become
your way of life. And it's, right.
Yeah, and like horseback archery, or the act, the physical act of horseback archery has become like a meditation. So, and I strongly believe that horseback archery has all the tools to teach you that a spirituality or religion could teach you, in terms of teaching you patience, tolerance, all the virtues that you would gain through a religious or monastic type of life. So in that sense, my approach to horseback archery is that it will help me to become a better person, in that it'll teach me patience in working with horses and students,
character building,
and myself, character building, and also the very important aspect of it is that it's not about beating other people. It's about bettering yourself. So every day I go down to the track and I'm trying to beat my own record, beat my own score. Not that I'm there to beat others or be better than others, or to improve the ego. And so I think in that sense, horseback archery has definitely helped me as a person. And so from a spiritual point of view, if you ask why I do horseback archery, that's definitely a very important aspect. Is that and even if, for example, I would feel like, say, for example, I had a big accident and I was on a wheelchair, or I wasn't able to actually do horseback archery, I would still be involved in it, because I would. It's become such a way of life, and I've invested so much of my time and money and energy into horseback archery that there's no back door anymore. Like, I'm in it.
Yeah, yeah.
You
It's a
know,
one-way street.
and it's a one-way street, yeah. And kind of like that's what I do. I'm a horseback archer now, and
Excellent.
involved in other things. You know, I'm also kind of developing this farm, and I'm doing, as I go into the future, it's the only thing I would like to do, and that's from a financial, physical, and spiritual point of view.
Excellent.
Yeah.
No, that's certainly very very commendable. So appreciate that. Okay, Daniel, we're going to wrap this up. I usually end each kind of conversational interview with a couple of kind of quick fire questions for all the people I have. So you know, not necessarily needing too much detail, just kind of a brief explanation. Do you prefer to shoot a laminate or a composite bow?
Laminate.
Laminate. Okay. Obviously, most horse archers will kind of prefer that as well. What is your favorite track to shoot on? You know, there's the hunting, you've got the Polish hunting track, you've got the Kassai, the Korean, the Turkish, so many. What is your preferred track that you like?
Definitely the Kassai track.
Yeah, that's a very common one. Wood or carbon arrows?
Carbon.
Carbon's one, yeah.
Carbon.
All right. What's your favorite type of bow to shoot? Meaning, kind of model style of bow.
Obviously, recurve horsebow, but I shoot the new Phoenix, the new Kassai Phoenix bow, which for me has been absolutely outstanding in its performance. I haven't, yeah. Okay,
that's good. Last one. This is just a kind of a fun theoretical question. If you were able to go back into time, and which era or time in history interests you the most archery-wise, that you would want to maybe live in or be present in?
That's a very interesting question. One of the eras that interests me the most is the Scythians.
Right.
And that's a very old history, going back, you know, I mean, the Scythians, they lived for literally thousands of years, but and roamed from most of Eastern Europe and Central Asia. But yeah, I find them to be a very intriguing, very interesting horseback archery culture. And of course, many other horseback archery cultures or tribes came from them. So it's a very broad, you know, the Scythians are a very broad kind of tribe, because there were so many sub-tribes. And but if there were a time that I would transport myself back to, it would be to Scythians. And of course, there were also, you know, there were Caucasian nomadic horseback archery tribe.
Right.
And a very deep, rich cultural history, which has intrigued me for years in the gold artifacts that they found. So yeah, definitely I would and I've been to Kazakhstan, and I've seen, you know, a lot of these artifacts that were unearthed in Kazakhstan. But yeah, very interesting people, the Scythians.
For sure.
So yeah, that would be one time.
Excellent. I know it's a tricky question. I mean, there are so many eras that are of interest archery-wise, but I just it's kind of a fun question that we kind of wrap up with. But Daniel, my friend, I commend you. I respect all the work you've done, and I you know, you said you're not a religious person, but you know me as a Muslim. I pray that God protects you, protects your land. You know, gives you all the goodness and blessings that will come from this work. And you know, you're really on a good path, and you're doing a lot of service for humanity, for the horseback archery community as a whole. And no doubt, long after we are gone, people might see this conversation and they will be still benefiting from the work and the seeds that you have planted. So I really appreciate you, your work, all your effort that you've put in, and I hope that we can come face to face soon, and I can come there and ride some of your horses and shoot some arrows.
Yeah. We look forward to having you at Griffin's Horse Archery. And Jihad, I have to thank you also for being such an inspiration to me, and
not at all.
For initially introducing me to horseback archery. And you will always be my first teacher. So
not at all. Look, this is, look, you know, we all take knowledge from each other, and I was just in that space at that time. But what makes me so happy is that, in my eyes, that you have totally surpassed and excelled whatever low level I was at, and I would be more than happy to come and, you know, learn from you now and benefit from your experience and your knowledge and stuff. So this is how we can help each other, you know, in humanity. We have to kind of, you know, be supportive of each other. Someone surpasses someone else, no big deal. We just have to be there to support each other, you know. So
yeah, no, absolutely. That's the absolute crux. Absolutely.
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank
Okay,
you
Daniel,
for this conversation.
thank you so much, my friend.
Appreciate it very much.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
It was good to be in touch again, and we'll speak to you soon.
Cool. Inshallah. Thank you.
Inshallah. All right.